Donald Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, does not do interviews often, but she just gave a shockingly candid interview in which she exposes Elon Musk's drug addiction. She said she was surprised when USAID was unilaterally slashed by Elon Musk. She talks about Donald Trump's personality defects and J.D. Vance's political evolution. Just for a sneak peek, it says, over the course of 11 interviews, Ms. Wiles offered pungent assessments of the president and his team. Mr. Trump, quote, has an alcoholic's personality. Vice President J.D. Vance has, quote, been a conspiracy theorist for a decade, and his conversion from Trump critic to Trump ally was not based on principle, but was sort of political because he was running for Senate. Elon Musk, she called, quote, an avowed ketamine user and an odd duck whose actions were not always rational and left her aghast. Russell Vought, the budget director, is a right-wing absolute zealot, and Attorney General Pam Bondi completely whiffed handling the Epstein files. A very, very candid interview with Susie Wiles shows that she is one of the most slick political operators in the administration. Listen, you won't find me praising or complimenting people in the Trump administration nearly ever, and that's not even what I'm doing. But out of everybody in the administration, Susie Wiles intentionally stays behind the scenes and allows people like Stephen Miller or J.D. Vance or Elon Musk to soak up all the attention. Susie Wiles does not do that many interviews because she knows that she has more power behind the scenes. They call her the Ice Maiden because she's the first ever woman chief of staff, and she's known as the only person in the entire White House who has at least a little bit of control over Donald Trump. This interview talks about how growing up with an alcoholic father who her and her mother had to do interventions with a dozen times, she knows how to deal with men with very abrasive, strong, abusive personalities. The interview then talks about how, due to her experience handling these men, she's able to have a unique, way of operating in the White House and in U.S. politics when Donald Trump is now that quote-unquote nearly alcoholic man, even though he doesn't drink. But the Elon Musk part, I want to start off with that, and then we can go through the article and potentially read some other areas. But the Elon Musk part I found uniquely interesting and chilling because she goes into detail about how she didn't even know USAID was being cut. Elon Musk did that unilaterally, illegally, without Congress, and it killed hundreds of thousands of people just so far. Before we jump in, the right-wing zealots, people like Elon Musk, do not want videos like this to be seen widely, so make sure you drop a like and subscribe. That's the best way you can boost it. Thank you. It says, from day one, Wiles had to grapple with another power center, Elon Musk. He's a complete solo actor, said Wiles of Trump's billionaire pal, who led the scorched earth blitz known as the Department of Government Efficiency. Wiles described Musk as something akin to a jacked-up Nosferatu. Quote, the challenge with Elon is keeping up with him. He's an avowed ketamine user, and he sleeps in a sleeping bag in the EOB in the daytime. He's an odd duck, as I think geniuses are, It's not helpful, but he is his own person. Musk triggered the first true crisis of the Trump presidency, and an early test for Wiles. Trump's chief was shocked when the SpaceX founder eviscerated the United States Agency for International Aid. Quote, I was initially aghast because I think anybody that pays attention to government and has ever paid attention to USAID believed, as I did, that they do very good work. Everything I've read about Susie Wiles, she creates these permission structures for Trump to do these fascistic things, but she has old school Mitt Romney views on most things. I've read a lot of interviews with Susie Wiles, and she thinks USAID is a good thing. Pretty sure she supports Ukraine, and she supports initiatives that are pro-democracy. Yet, the perplexing part is she allows Donald Trump to continue to destroy our democracy. This says, in his executive order freezing foreign aid, Trump had decreed that life-saving programs should be spared. Instead, they were shuttered. When Elon said, we're doing this, he was already into it, said Wiles. And that's probably because he knew it would be horrifying to others. But then he decided it was a better approach to shut it down, fire everybody, shut them out, and then go rebuild. Not the way I would do it.
Elon Musk didn't even rebuild. He didn't get the time to rebuild anything. We just shuttered USAID because a ketamine-fueled monster was running through the White House, sleeping in a sleeping bag, apparently. Wiles knew that fixing this was on her. The president doesn't know and never will, she told me. He doesn't know the details of these smallish agencies. She's very candid in this interview. Like, at times, she'd be like, yeah, Trump just doesn't know this stuff, which is kind of scary because Biden, for his age and for all of his flaws, you would never say that he just didn't know or was incapable of understanding the function of an agency because he worked in the government for a while. Wiles says she called Musk on the carpet. You can't just lock people out of their offices, she recalls telling him. At first, Wiles didn't grasp the effect that slashing USAID programs would have on humanitarian aid. I didn't know a lot about the extent of their grant making. But with immunizations halted in Africa, lives would soon be lost. Soon, she was getting frantic calls from relief agency heads and former government officials with a dire message. Thousands of lives were in the balance. Wiles continued, so Marco is on his way to Panama. We call him and say, you're Senate confirmed. You're going to have to be a custodian, essentially, of USAID. Essentially, he says, okay. But Musk forged ahead, all throttle, no brake. Quote, Elon's attitude is you have to get it done fast. If you're an incrementalist, you won't get your rocket to the moon, Wiles said. And so with that attitude, you're going to break some China. But no rational person could think that the USAID process was a good one. Nobody. Yeah, maybe having ambitious ideas in the engineering/technology industry is fine, right? But maybe in the middle of a drug-fueled rampage, you shouldn't quote-unquote ambitiously slash a humanitarian service. The shuttering of USAID crippled the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief, or PEPFAR. The antiretroviral program, launched with a $15 billion budget by George W. Bush in 2003, was credited with preventing millions of deaths. The return on investment here is so crazy. For a quote-unquote businessman, Elon Musk does not seem to understand the return on investment that you get when you put money into something. Yes, putting $15 billion into any one thing is a lot of money on its face, and you can just frame it as throwing $15 million or billion dollars into the abyss, right? But the reality is the millions of lives saved throughout the world, the disease prevention that stops diseases from coming to the US's door, the increased productivity worldwide from the lives saved, the less and less deaths you have, the better of a society, or even the increase of global health standards across the globe. This returns more than $15 billion. Stopping AIDS from coming to the United States returns more than $15 billion. The easiest thought experiment is how much did COVID cost the United States government when we shut down? If we could have spent like half of that just preventing COVID from even getting to the United States, would we have done that? I don't know. Conservatives probably would have railed against it because they don't understand return on investment. Privately, another drama was playing out. Bush himself had gotten wind of the cutting of PEPFAR. He called Rubio to express alarm, according to a former aide close to Bush. He's been appalled by Trump from the beginning, and he's determined not to weigh in. But Musk's attack on one of his legacy achievements was too much. Bush, said that person, deeply cares about the PEPFAR program. That and wounded warriors are two things where he will weigh in, not publicly, but with intention. Did Rubio have any regrets about the untold number of lives that PEPFAR's evisceration might cost? No, first of all, whoever says that, it's just not being accurate. We are not eviscerating PEPFAR. Now, this is Marco Rubio not being as candid as Susie Wiles. That's the thing about the Susie Wiles interview that is very, very satisfying, is that every time they go over to Marco Rubio or other political operatives, they're all BSing. They're all lying. They're all using scripts. Susie Wiles, I'm not saying she's like some beacon of truth who's like morally pure or whatever. I'm just saying she's being rather candid in this interview about Elon Musk's drug use and about all of the times that he's messed up. President Trump's chief of staff says that she tried to get him to end his score setting against political enemies after 90 days in office, but acknowledged that the administration's still ongoing push for prosecutions has been fueled in part by Trump's desire for revenge. Let's continue reading a bit more. Ms. Wiles described her own reservations about certain policies in real time to the author of a well-regarded book on White House chiefs of staffs, even as debates raged inside the admin. She said, "I urge Mr. Trump not to pardon the most violent rioters on J6, which he did anyway. I mean, she probably thought it was indefensible and was going to hurt their political capital, because then they'd have to spend time answering questions about pardoning violent criminals," which is true. To continue, she unsuccessfully tried to get him to delay his major tariffs because of a huge disagreement among his advisors, and she said the administration needed to look harder at deportations to prevent mistakes. But she did not complain about being overruled at various points, and said she got on board with the eventual decisions. So she is, at the end of the day, a fascist enabler. She's enabling the fascist takeover of our government. I'm gonna leave it there. Listen, if you want me to make another video about this topic and go deeper into Elon Musk and Susie Wiles, and there's a JD Vance section that's crazy, then just subscribe to the Automography feed and drop a blue heart. I love you all. Peace out.